Okay, so you want me to show you how to make pesto from scratch? I don't know if you can see very well down on my workspace. I'll hold things up if need be. So I'll get everything prepared so this doesn't take a bunch of time. The recipe for cheese would call for a third of a cup of Parmigiano Reggiano and a third a cup of Pecorino Romano. You don't have to worry about the second one. It's pretty expensive. You're probably not going to notice the taste between the two. So I just used double the amount of Parmigiano Reggiano. Don't confuse that with just Parmesan cheese, like the shit you find in the green canister that you throw on. That's not real cheese. It's got a bunch of stabilizers in it and it won't melt. So don't use that stuff. Don't use any shredded cheese. Get a block of just Parmesan cheese from the store, something like that. I think that was $6 for the whole block, which will last you ages. Maybe it's a few dollars more. You can pay a bunch. But get a block of Parmesan Reggiano cheese. So you need, 2/3, right? 2/3 of that. I've got pine nuts because, we've got some and I can afford the pine nuts, but cashews work good and they're cheaper. And it's because they've got the creamy texture just like pine nuts. So third of a cup of pine nuts. Bunch of olive oil, like, half a cup. But whatever olive oil you got, as long as it's extra virgin olive oil, that's all you need. Don't get super fussy about it. And then the basil, I've just got them soaking in water here, right? And it's a packet that is a decent size amount of basil comes in a packet. Yay big or something like that. It was like $5 and change for a bunch of basil. So you need a good amount of it. And you can always adjust these things. Like you can adjust the amount of cheese, add a little salt to taste. And then just a bit of garlic. All you need is like a little bit of garlic. That's a pretty big clove that I've chunked in half. But you don't need a lot, just a little bit of garlic. I think it's like third of a clove or half a clove or whatever it is that I sent through the text. All right, and then to blend it all, this really comes down to whatever you got. You can use like the, Ninja Bullety blender thing, and you just put everything in the cup and put the dooley dad on there and flip her up and you're good to go, right? Or a big old regular blender if that's what you've got. Just remember this is an uncooked sauce, so you don't want to like churn the crap out of it and like cook the basil with the heat of the blades. So you sort of just pulse it, pulse to get it all mixed up. But I've got kind of one of these things, and you add the turny blender onto it, right? And there's blades down there, and then you drop this guy on top, and it blends everything up. So that's what I've been using. And the key to this is to stick this in the freezer. Put a little bit of water in there is what I did, and I put it in the freezer for a while, and so it's got ice cold water in there. This will cool down this entire container that we're going to blend the basil in, so you don't cook the basil as well, and so it doesn't oxidize and go brown. So I'm going to dump all this out, this water, don't need it. But at least the container's cold now. Right. First thing we're going to do is do the oil, the nuts, and the garlic together. Get a nice creamy thing going on there. So into my little container, nuts, garlic, and a bunch of the oil, half cup of oil, whatever that was that I measured out there. Yay me, I spilled some. Waste not, want not. Lid, that's plugged in. This I don't need a pulse, I'm going to cream the crap out of it. So I'll show you the pulsing here in a minute, but let's let this rip. Okay, so then that's the nuts and the olive oil and the garlic all kind of blended super smooth there, right? So now we can take all our basil I'm just going to start shoving. I know you can't see this from the view, but I'm going to take this and start shoving the basil, which is soaking in water. Just start shoving it all in there. A little bit of water that the basil has been sitting in into the container is fine because it'll emulsify with the oil, which is good. Gives it a more creamy consistency once you emulsify it. So that's all good. So I'm going to toss all these basil in there. Bit of extra water for shits and giggles. So that's what we're talking. Like, it's nearly, it's a fair amount of basil, but it'll like blend down quite a bit. And this is where I said we're going to pulse it, right? So I'm going to take my time. Might need a little stirry thing from time to time to kind of push it down. So I'll just get a spoon to push it down if I need to. So you'll probably hear it. Pulse, pulse. Let me try to show that. You see it all blending there. So I'm just sort of doing this over and over. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that because it'll heat up the blades and cook the basil. So just take your time. Just small pulses. Take your time. This will just take me another minute or so, and you'll see all the basil blended down there. And there you go. You can see it's mostly blended there, right? All right. Now I'm going to add the cheese. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to take all this cheese and put that in there. Now the cheese is pretty salty, so I haven't added any salt, but I can do that at the end, right? I'll taste it when we're done. Add a little bit of salt if I need to. Okay. Same again. Pulse, pulse. Cheese is getting all blended in there. All right. It's looking pretty good. It might need a bit more oil. Let me give it a rip a couple of times, right? Just a couple of times at the end here to get it all mixed and emulsified. I'm still not going to do it for too long, but just enough to really rip through it. It's pretty thick, so I'm going to add some more oil. Yeah. Okay. A little bit more. Just do a little bit at a time. It really just comes down to the consistency you want. Okay. Give it a little taste. So that's kind of what we're looking at, right? Nice green flavor, looks awesome. Nice green color, I mean. All right, let me give it a little try. Oh, maybe a little salt. Couldn't hurt. Not too much. A couple of grinds of salt. Not too much. Give it another go. Yeah, and Kaylin, that's kind of what I gave to you that day. Straight out of this, was like, hey, you wanna try this? So look how much that makes. That's a good amount. That's way more than one meal's worth for a few people. So what you can do is, if you're not using any of this straight away, you can put it all into a jar. One of these guys, if you got them. But when you put it all in the container you're going to use, pour a little olive oil on the top, and the olive oil kind of acts as a bit of a barrier, and your pesto won't go brown in the fridge. And then you can chuck it in the fridge for, I don't know, a week or two, something like that. But if you're going to use it, the only thing I recommend, make your pasta, boil it, right? So it's ready to go. Pasta into your mixing whatever, pesto in, and then as much as you want to taste, right? You can always add more, but add a little bit of pasta water as you mix all that together. As you mix the pasta with the pesto, add some of the pasta water, because the pasta water is starchy and it'll make this really creamy. If you just dump this on top of pasta, it doesn't have the right consistency. It's just this thick sauce on pasta. It won't stick very good, and you won't get as much sauce. The sauce itself comes from this mixing with the pasta water. So keep using a little bit of pasta water, a little bit of pasta water, a little bit of pesto till you get a really nice sauce, and you're good to go. I don't think I need to show you that part, but that's kind of what I do to make fresh pesto. Yeah, right on.